Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to another episode in this series that we have been dealing with of Dawah Ilallah, how to call people to Islam. We have been using the comparative sciences as a way to bring people the message of Tawheed, bring people the message of how to submit to Allah. And today, inshallah, we are going to look at some of the issues that people raise about Islam and how we can deal with those issues. One of those issues is, why do you Muslims have more than one wife, or why are you allowed to have more than one wife? This comes up often when you're doing dawah to people. In the middle of your talk, while you're trying to tell them about Allah, they'll say, but you guys have more than one wife. Why do you guys have more than one wife? The only religious text in the world, of all the religious texts that I've read, says that then marry only one, is in the Quran. You have permission, but it says in the Quran, it's the only religious text in the world that I know of that says then marry only one, and that's found in the Quran. As we spoke about last week, the importance of this book, it's a book of change, surely. Not the book changes, it changes us. We must change, surely, is the Quran. This is the only book that the ruling is given. It's not found in the Torah. It's not found in the Gita. It's not found in the Vedas. It's not found in the Christian Bible. It's not found in anything. No other text do you find it mentioned. The Bible doesn't even mention the fact how many wives you can have. In fact, we know from the biblical text, some of them had 600 wives. Some had 300 wives. Some had 20 wives. There's nowhere where it says, then marry only one. In the Bible, there are so many references to various prophets and teachers and kings and elders that had numerous wives. Abraham had, from the biblical text, 3 wives. King Solomon had 700 wives and concubines. So he had women that he was engaged to, hundreds of those. He wasn't married to yet. 700, according to the text. So in the Hindu literature, there are various deities who had hundreds of wives. Some even had thousands of wives. Jews, right up until the 1950s, it was quite common to have more than one wife. Just the other day, they were still marrying what they call plural wives. None of these faiths have ever regulated the number of wives. Christianity, you could have thousands, hundreds, whatever your choice. African traditional religions, in my country, you can have as many wives as you like. There's no limit. Judaism, no limit. Mormonism, in those groups in the Mormon church, some of them are against it now. There's no limits in the Mormon church, still to this very day. You can have 20 wives if you want, billion wives if you could afford it. There's no limit. No other faith regulates the number of wives a man can have like Islam does. And nor has there ever been any other religion like Islam which actually limits the number of wives to 4 only. Maximum, that's your cap. So you can't have 1,000 wives or whatever. The idea of only having one wife that we find in Christianity, Hinduism, Judaism to now, has got nothing to do with their religious text. Nowhere to be found. It's because of government. Government stipulated that, not religion. So when we see these accusations that are often made against Islam, it's not because they are finding any religious issue with it. It's a political issue. It's a government issue. The issue of having only one wife is not a religious significance. In my country, it's quite normal to have more than one wife because the government says it's fine. Maybe they turn a blind eye to the fact you can have more than one wife. Having one wife is a man-made rule. It's not a godly rule. Nowhere do you find in other religions that it is. In India, Parliament in the 1950s passed the Hindu Marriage Act, where it said that a Hindu man can only take one wife. Before that, you could have as many as you like. So it's a new development. It's not something that's been around for a long time. The rabbis, for centuries, didn't have any rulings on having one wife. Christianity never had that. They find that many countries in the world, you could still marry as many wives as you like. There's even an interesting story that even during certain periods of time in war, in history, we find that the Catholic Church permitted their members to have more than one wife. There's even times in the history of the Catholic Church where priests who were forbidden from marrying were allowed to marry, because there weren't any men around, not enough men around to keep the population going. And so they would change the laws of God, according to them, to suit the changes of the day. So when we look at this whole idea of whether man is allowed to have more than one wife or not, we see that there is no basis in any of the religious documents. It might be an idea that society thinks is a good idea. Often what society thinks is a good idea, when you actually analyze it, is not a good idea. Today, if I had to stand up and say that I think it is a good idea to have more than one wife, I would be booed out of there. They would boo me out of there. But they would say it's a very good idea for same-sex marriages. Very good idea. Abortion on demand. Very good idea. Termination of elderly because they are a hindrance on society. Brilliant idea. That's what they'll tell you. They've got an act on the table right now for the cutting of the population of the earth by euthanasia. A very good idea. These are 4 very bad ideas. Yet, having more than one wife is not a good idea. Because it actually comes from a text, where all these other ones are human thinking. And so anything that comes from a reliable text, even if you don't believe that, even if you know that the Bible is corrupt, we still know that that text supports plural marriages. The Torah supports plural marriages. The Vedas support plural marriages. Every religion in the world supports plural marriages, except in 1940s and 1950s, they changed that. And they all started to change because of politics. So if anyone is going to argue and say it's not modern, then look at what the modern things that you're accepting and say are fine are. They are not good. I'd rather have plural marriages. But please understand, I'm not telling you to go get 4 wives. If you can't, don't. If you can't be just with them, don't. If you can't afford it, don't. Have one. One is enough. But I'm saying it's the only religion in the world that allows it. Now what about people who say, that's such a sexist statement to make. I mean, come on. Guy having 4 wives, I mean, he's got like a harem, there's women all over the place. It's not like that in Islam. They have to have separate homes. They don't all live together in one big happy family. It doesn't work like that. So don't get the wrong idea. What about people who say, why can't a woman have 4 husbands? Have you put 4 men in one room together around a woman and see what happens? They will have killed each other. Testosterone will fill the room. Men are like savages. No matter how much you try to train them, they will kill each other. Why did you look at her like that? You think women get angry. Men are nothing like that. They don't get angry with words, they get angry with fists and guns and knives. They would kill each other. Don't you think African society would have tried that? Or an Indian society would have tried that? Or an Aboriginal society would have tried that? They did, and guess what happened? And so they realized it doesn't work. What about when the woman falls pregnant? Whose child is it? There's 4 men to choose from. Well, it's fine, you can do a DNA test. What about inheritance? Who's going to inherit now? This man's going to be upset because that's the firstborn. And there will be drama over that. Trust me, you think it won't happen? You put 2 or 3 brothers together in one room and see how they carry on. Let alone 3 married people, they're all married to the same woman. So Allah in His wisdom knew this. It's not a sexist thing. It's to protect us from killing each other. It's very practical. Do you have a question, brother?
I just want to make a comment, Sheikh, that the majority, to what my understanding is, the majority of the people who are accepting Islam in the West, demographically, are the Western women. So I doubt this really plays a big role in their thinking.
You're right. There are more women embracing Islam than men are, but we've got to look at the non-Muslim community who are making these accusations. What about in a society where, you know, like you said, there's imbalance, and there are many women who can't find a husband? Then she can at least be a second wife. Many people in society, especially in the West, have a wife, and then they are cheating on that wife with somebody else. What happens to that woman? She has no rights, she has no protection. Let's take a break. When we get back from the break, we'll continue, inshallah.
distinguished world-famous orator who dedicated their lives to convey the message of peace, came together at one platform, the International Islamic Conference, with one vision, with one mission, Peace Mission.
I welcome all of you with Islamic greetings. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Peace Mission, every Monday to Saturday at 7 p.m. and repeat telecast at 10 a.m. UK on Peace TV.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الله لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم لا تأخذه سنة ولا نوم.
A light from Allah in the darkness.
له ما في السماوات وما في الأرض. من ذا الذي يشفع عنده إلا بإذنه.
A guide from Allah in the confusion.
يعلم ما بين أيديهم وما خلفهم ولا يحيطون بشيء من علمه إلا بما شاء.
A cure from Allah for every sickness.
وسع كرسيه السماوات والأرض ولا يؤوده حفظهما وهو العلي العظيم.
The Quran. Join me, Muhammad Timham, as we study the beautiful passages of the Quran and the great lessons that they contain in Lessons from the Quran.
Study about the glorious lessons that connect us to our Creator, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in Lessons from the Quran. Next on Peace TV.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Okay, so we're continuing looking at women and marriage and all these issues that often gets raised by people when we're trying to do dawah to them. And they say, oh, how can you guys have like 4 wives and all the rest of it? But in society today, the majority of men in non-Muslim societies are cheating on their wives. Sorry to tell you, ladies, this is the statistics that are given. 80% of men are going to cheat on their wives, statistically. So that woman who your husband is cheating with, that woman has no rights. I mean, you might be upset as a wife, leaving that aside. But what about the other woman? We even call her the other woman. That's what they refer to in society. She has no rights. She can do nothing in law. In fact, she's just a mistress. Kept on the side, has no rights. Even if he keeps a mistress for 2-3 years, she has no rights. In Islam, that woman would be a second wife, and she would have all the rights of a wife. Surely a better solution than what we're having in society today. That child that was born from that mistress would be protected by marriage. That child would have a proper father, would have a proper brother and sister and family and half brother and half sister, whatever it might be, because he's part of a family structure. Islam protects from that from happening. Today we live in a society where there are broken homes everywhere. Kids are angry with half brothers and half sisters because they don't have the rights, because they're not even, never married, never got the name, never became part of a name. Not that you have to take your husband's name, but I'm talking about a family, a name of a family, feeling part of a unit. This is the beauty of Islam, that a woman is protected. She doesn't become a mistress. She becomes an equal. She becomes a mother, a wife. This is the beauty of Islam, protecting society. In the West, People can have mistresses and it's accepted. In fact, we actually praise the person. It becomes like, hey, he's got a mistress on the side. We all laugh about it. I think it's funny. It's disgusting that we actually think it's cool. We think it's nice. I once said an Afrikaans word. In my country, we say lekker. We think it's good. We think it's nice if somebody has a mistress and a wife. We think that person's macho, like, this guy, he's such a player, he's got a mistress and a wife. It's wrong. See, Islam prevents that from happening. So you might think that Islam is archaic and old-fashioned, sexist. Really, look at your people in your own country. Look at the people in your own culture. You think we sexist? Do you think we crazy? He's got mistresses. He's cheating on his wife and the girlfriend have no protection. And you think he's cool. Seriously, take a look at Islam. Look at how beautiful Islam is, how it protects your rights. It protects your rights as a wife. It protects your rights as a future mistress, that you no longer become that mistress, you become an equal, become a wife. So, what government in the world, what institution in the world protects people like Islam does? How beautiful and how easy it is to be a Muslim and have that protection. Do you have any questions regarding taking second wives, marriage and all that? If it's a very deep theological question, we'll pass it over to a scholar. But if it's a question for dawah purposes, you're welcome to ask me now. Anyone have a question?
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
Sheikh, when the text is not supporting the issue about marrying one, why are the people attached to the government?
What text are you talking about?
The religious text is
Which
not
text?
supporting for a single wife. Then why the people are
Doing that.
doing it? Plus they are accusing the Muslims that you are having four.
We said that the move to having only one wife was a move about government. It's got nothing to do with the religious text. So the fact that they believe that it is part of their religious text, it means they don't understand their own book. This idea is coming from external sources, not from internal sources. What we hear in the Bible is what God joins together, let no man break asunder. It doesn't say what God joined together singular. You could have another wife later and God can also join together, as long as you're not divorcing her. The only thing is you're not allowed to divorce your wife. And this would also not happen if you have plural marriages, because you would not have to divorce your wife. You could actually just have another wife with that wife and it would reduce the problems that you're having or the tension you're having. But in the secular society, Christians were not permitted, and Jews are not permitted to divorce and then remarry. So that text that they're using as a proof simply says, what you join together you cannot break, so there's no divorce. It doesn't talk about not allowing you to have another wife. So it's a misunderstanding of what it means to have more than one wife. Before I answer the next question, many times when we look at Islam, we talk about women's rights and men's rights and human rights. What Islam teaches is not men's rights and women's rights and human rights, but men's responsibility, women's responsibility, and human responsibility. We have a responsibility as men towards women to make sure that we protect them, that we don't abuse them, that they have a say in society. We have to be responsible for women, to protect them from ourselves. In Islam, men must protect women from men. There's no religious institution in the world that does that. Men protect their own interests. I'm not going to marry her. Why should I marry her? Then I'm responsible. Then I have to pay. Then I have to, get out of my own pocket. It's going to be expensive. Islam protects women. Men are responsible to protect women from men. So Allah has written it to protect women against us, because we will be bad to them. This is why we know this book is divine. This is why we know this book comes from Allah. A man would not have written it like that. Especially back then, when they treated women like cattle. In fact, cattle were worth more than women. An animal you could actually make some money out of, where a woman was an expense. That's how they looked at it in those days. It would not have been conceivable in the mind of any person to sit there and go, all right, let's make a protection clause for women. Not possible. The Christians traded women like they were merchandise. The Jews traded women like they were merchandise. The Arabs traded women like they were merchandise. So this is why we know this is not a human who wrote this. It has to be divine. It has to be amazing. You have a question at the back?
Brother, since we're talking about plural marriages, when it comes to the dawah given by the evangelists, when they're doing dawah to Muslims, one of the strong and juicy points for them is that our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam had 9 wives. And one of the most interesting point for them is that one of them was 9 years old. Totally disregarding, ignorant as to why and how, but they use it a point to make dawah to Muslims.
Yeah. This is one of the easier ones than the more complicated ones to have. Is the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, I believe that Allah allowed this to happen on purpose. We don't know for sure that this is the way. I'm just looking at it from a perspective of a male. Imagine if you have 9 wives and you were a bad husband. If you did one thing, imagine you got 9 wives. Think about it, guys, for a moment. You do one bad thing, like you forgot to wash the car, or you didn't wash the dishes. Do you think that 9 wives wouldn't have mentioned it? They would have said, you can't believe what he did. He didn't wash the dishes again. I'm so sick of telling him. And the other wife goes, I know, the same thing. They'd be talking amongst themselves. The whole community would know within half an hour, if you got 9 wives, about all your faults and all your problems. So when we look at the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam having 9 wives, this is another evidence what type of character and what type of person he was. The rumors would have flooded the country if he was a bad person, if he was fake, if he wasn't genuinely who he was. So I believe Allah in His mercy, Allah in His wisdom, made sure He had so many on purpose, so that it was a proof to all the critics. They had many opportunities, many opportunities to say, oh, he's a bad husband, he did this wrong, he did that wrong, especially after the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam died. Many opportunities. Not a single statement, not a single hidden letter found anywhere. So that alone is a reason why he had so many wives. The other interesting thing about the age of his wife, what we know from Jewish culture, it's still to this very hour and this very moment and this very second. It has not been removed from the Jewish law that you can marry a girl when she gets into her menstrual cycle. So when a woman gets into a menstrual cycle, you can marry her. And that law has not changed. No matter how many of the Christians might jump up and down about it, the law is the law. So people develop differently. We can't change that. And so the law required that when a woman starts her menstrual cycle, she was ready for marriage. We know from the Catholic encyclopedia and the Catholic books of study, which are more to be trusted than the Protestant, on history keeping, that Mary, the mother of Jesus, may Allah be pleased with her, was anywhere between 9 years old and 12 years old when she married a husband who was in his 80s. That's enough as well. But we're not playing tit for tat, we're just giving you what it says. Well, we've run out of time. You're going to have to join us again next time as we continue to look at some of the issues that are facing da'is worldwide and how to be successful in the work that you're doing as a da'i. So for me, Areeb Islam, and all of us here, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
مشفق متعطف لا ينتهي بالحصر ما أعطاه رب رحيم